In the dynamic world of professional development, breakthrough moments happen when theory meets practice. Join Marsha and John as they report on the transformative keynotes and workshops led by master coaches Steph, Hans, and Karl at the House of Coaching. Marsha and John join the coaches from boardrooms to training spaces and witness real learning in action. In these podcasts, they uncover stories, strategies, and successes that turn good professionals into great ones. This is where coaching meets reality. Welcome to the House of Coaching podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we'll be focusing on understanding different personality types, and we'll be using Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson as our guide for this exploration. And it just seems super relevant, especially for you, because I know you're interested in insights discovery, and insights discovery has, very similar goals like improving self-awareness, communication, things like that.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is that we're bringing kind of a unique perspective to this because, you're already familiar with insights discovery, and we can kind of layer these concepts together in a way that's really specific to you.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, I have to say, come on, that title, Surrounded by Idiots, it definitely caught my eye, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's also like, it kind of speaks to that feeling we've all had sometimes, like, why don't people just get it?
Right, and I think that's the point, right? It's not really about calling anyone an idiot. It's more about realizing that sometimes we just approach things so differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get into it. Erickson uses like a color-coded system to describe these different personality types, and he focuses on four main colors: red, blue, green, and yellow.
And that's actually where we see some of those parallels to insights discovery start to come in. Both systems use colors to represent different behavioral patterns, but I think what's interesting is how Erickson, he really dives deep into these colors in Surrounded by Idiots.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So let's start with red. What are some of the key characteristics that Erickson highlights for this personality type?
So reds are often described as very action-oriented, decisive, driven. They're the kind of people who thrive in fast-paced environments, they love a challenge, and they're definitely not afraid to take charge.
So thinking about your work with insights discovery, would you say they are like pretty similar to a particular type that you've seen there?
I'd say there are definitely some similarities, but what I find really interesting is that Erickson, he doesn't shy away from the potential downsides of each color too. And for reds, sometimes their strengths can tip over into being a little domineering, impatient, or even too focused on results and not so much on the people involved.
Yeah, that's so important. This isn't about putting people into boxes and being like, okay, you're this and you're that. It's about realizing that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and understanding those patterns can help us navigate interactions a little bit better.
Exactly. It's like having a roadmap, okay, this is where they're coming from.
Yeah, love that. So moving on to blue, how does Erickson describe this personality type?
Blues are all about precision. They're very analytical, detail-oriented. They love to gather information and plan things out carefully, and they're really big on making sure things are done correctly.
Oh, so they're the ones who are triple-checking the data, making sure the project plan is flawless, all the I's are dotted, the A's are crossed.
Absolutely, that's them. But again, even those strengths, they can sometimes manifest as overthinking. Or, being a bit rigid or getting so caught up in the details that they miss the bigger picture.
So it's like each color has two sides to it. What makes them effective can also trip them up?
Exactly. It's a balance. And honestly, that's where understanding these types can be so helpful.
All right. So we've got red and blue. What about green? How does green fit into this whole thing?
Green is all about harmony, patience, stability. They're the peacemakers, the listeners. They bring that sense of calm and balance to pretty much any situation.
I can already think of a few people like that, just that calming presence, always there to listen.
Right. And they are so valuable to have on a team or even, in your personal life. But because they want harmony so much, sometimes they can be too passive or, avoid conflict altogether. And that has its own challenges.
Yeah, it's like even peacemaking, taken to an extreme, can become a problem.
You got it. And that's why I think it's important to understand those nuances of each color, like what's driving them.
Makes sense. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about yellow. What are the hallmarks of this type?
Yellows, they are the life of the party, right? They bring energy, enthusiasm. You can just feel that optimism when you're around them. They're great at brainstorming, building connections, and they just have this knack for seeing the positive side of things.
So I'm picturing them always coming up with new ideas. They just brighten up the room when they walk in, always bringing people together.
You got it. But, and there's always a but, right? Sometimes that need for stimulation can make them a little scattered, easily distracted, or even a bit too focused on being the center of attention.
Oh, interesting. So all this is starting to make a lot of sense. I'm already starting to see these colors play out in my own life with people I know, but I'm really curious to hear more about how Karl Mortier, he's a certified insights discovery practitioner, how he connected with all this.
Yeah, so Karl actually met Thomas Erickson at the Kortijk Book Fair, and they got to chat a bit about these ideas.
That's awesome. What did they talk about?
Well, it was interesting. They were talking about how these systems, even though they have different approaches, they're ultimately aiming for the same thing, right? Helping people understand themselves and each other better. And, they both really emphasized that it's not about saying this is the absolute truth. It's about giving you practical tools for figuring out this whole human interaction thing.
So it's not like this person eye is red, this person eye is blue. It's more about recognizing that everyone's got a mix of these colors.
Exactly. And what was really cool is that Karl, with his experience in insights discovery, he could see the value in what Erickson was doing. Like, yeah, they both use colors, but they bring different perspectives to the table, which is actually really cool.
Like different lenses to look through.
Yeah.
And when you combine them, you get a much fuller picture.
Absolutely. And that's actually what we're going to be exploring more as we dive deeper into this. How Surrounded by Idiots can, give you even more tools and insights to understand communication styles, especially given your background with insights discovery.
This is already super insightful. I can't wait to hear more about how to actually put these concepts into practice. But before we move on, I want to make sure we're both on the same page here. We've talked a lot about these 4 colors, but it's not as simple as just slapping a color on someone's forehead and saying, okay, you're blue, you're red.
Right.
Right.
It's way more nuanced than that. It's about recognizing patterns, recognizing tendencies, and using that knowledge to improve how we communicate.
So it's more about saying, oh, they seem to exhibit a lot of blue tendencies,
Yeah.
rather than saying they are blue.
Exactly. It's about understanding that everyone is complex and these are just frameworks, they're not the whole story.
Okay, that makes sense. And it really resonates with what I've learned through insights discovery, too. It's not about putting people in boxes. It's about appreciating the nuances of human behavior and then using that to communicate better, build stronger connections.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to be exploring even more as we dive into Surrounded by Idiots.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where Surrounded by Idiots, it really shines, I think. It takes these personality differences and it looks at what they actually mean for communication in the real world.
Okay, so how do we actually use this color system in our daily lives? Is it we have to try to figure out everyone's color before we even talk to them?
Not necessarily, no. It's more about becoming aware of the patterns and then shifting how you communicate based on that. Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't talk to a toddler the same way you talk to a college professor, right?
Right. You'd change your language, your tone, the whole thing. Exactly. And that's what Erickson's getting at here. So, for example, if you're dealing with someone who's showing a lot of those red tendencies, being direct, concise, action-oriented, that's going to be key.
So no beating around the bush with the reds, just get to the point. Does this line up at all with any of the communication stuff you've learned from insights discovery?
Oh, yeah, totally. It reminds me of how insights discovery talks about, really tailoring your message to the individual. What works for one person might not work for another.
It's all about meeting them where they are, speaking their language.
Exactly. And then with blues, it's all about giving them the details, being logical, avoiding anything that's, kind of vague or ambiguous.
So if I was presenting a proposal to someone who seemed like a blue, I better come prepared with all the facts, the figures, all the research to back up what I'm saying.
Precisely. Blues love thoroughness, accuracy. Show me the evidence, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. And this could be really helpful in a work setting, where clear communication is so important.
Oh, absolutely. And, this ties back to what Karl Mortier was saying about the practical side of these systems. It's not just about, knowing the personality types. It's about actually using that knowledge to get things done, to improve those interactions.
So it's not just theory. It's about actually putting it into practice. All right, so we've covered red, blue. What about green? How do we adapt our communication for someone with those tendencies?
With greens, it's really all about creating a safe and harmonious environment. They're all about connection, collaboration, a sense of peace. So being patient, listening well, and avoiding anything that feels too pushy or confrontational is super important.
So if I was working on a project with someone who seems like a green, I would really want to focus on building that rapport, making sure everyone feels heard, and finding solutions that benefit the whole team.
You got it. Greens thrive when they feel respected and when everyone is working towards a common goal.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so much good stuff here. Last but not least, how do we best communicate with yellows?
With yellows, bring the energy, be enthusiastic, give them space to be creative, to share their ideas.
That's like brainstorming sessions, and lots of collaboration would be right up their alley.
Oh yeah, they love that. Yellows are all about interaction, inspiration, a little bit of fun even. So be playful, engage with their ideas, and, celebrate those aha moments.
That's it. Oh, so helpful. I'm already seeing how I can use this. But what about when communication breaks down? Like, what if we've tried all this and it's still not working? What does Erickson say about that?
Well, one of the most powerful things he talks about is looking in the mirror first. Before you blame the other person for not understanding you, ask yourself, am I being clear? Am I being respectful? Am I adapting my approach?
It's so easy to get stuck in our own heads and forget that communication is a two-way street.
For sure. And sometimes just acknowledging the other person's perspective can really help to de-escalate things.
Just saying something like, I understand you're feeling frustrated, can make a big difference.
Totally. It's about showing empathy, even if you don't agree with them.
This is so empowering. I feel like I'm getting a crash course in human behavior here.
Yeah.
But I do have to wonder, are there any downsides to using these personality types? Could we, I don't know, misuse this knowledge? Or maybe even misinterpret someone's behavior?
That's a really great question, and it's something that both Erickson and Karl Mortier talk about. They both warn against using these colors as like labels or to justify bad behavior.
So just because someone's a red personality doesn't mean they can be rude or, dismissive of others.
Exactly. These colors are for understanding, not excusing. Everyone is responsible for how they act.
That's really important. These tools shouldn't be used to let people off the hook for bad behavior.
Right. And there's another potential pitfall, too, and that's stereotyping. We have to be careful not to lump everyone into a category based on their color. Remember, everyone is a mix of all four.
So it's more about tendencies, not making assumptions about who someone is.
Precisely. These colors are a starting point, not the finish line. Always approach people as individuals.
I love that perspective. It's a reminder that these systems are guides, not rule books. Be open-minded, be willing to see the person, not just the color.
Exactly. And that brings us back to one of the core messages of both Surrounded by Idiots and Insight's Discovery. Effective communication is all about adapting to the other person's style.
Being flexible, being observant, meeting them where they are.
You nailed it. And honestly, that's a skill that can benefit us in every part of our lives.
This is so fascinating, but I'm curious, does Erickson go into how these types might play out in specific situations? Like how they react to conflict or how they handle change?
Oh, he does. The book explores how each color type tends to approach different challenges. For example, with conflict, a red personality might be very quick to confront the issue head on, while a blue might want to gather more information, analyze everything before they act.
That makes sense. Reds are all about action, while blues need that processing time. It's like that whole fight or flight response.
Exactly. And greens, they might try to mediate the conflict, find a peaceful solution, while yellows might try to, lighten the mood, find a creative way out.
So each color brings a different approach to the table. Knowing this could be so helpful in teams or even just in personal relationships.
Absolutely. Understanding how people might react in tough situations can help you navigate them a lot smoother.
And what about change? How do the different colors approach change?
Well, reds, they might see change as a good thing, a chance to grow, a challenge. While blues, they might need a bit more time to adjust, and they definitely prefer things to be, structured.
Reds are spontaneous, blues are predictable. Almost like opposites.
Exactly. And greens might be a bit hesitant towards change. They like stability, while yellows might be all excited about the new possibilities.
So understanding this can help us navigate change better, whether it's in our personal lives or at work. We can anticipate what might be difficult for someone and adjust our approach.
You got it. It's all about using this knowledge to be more adaptable, more empathetic, and ultimately more effective in how we interact with others.
This is eye-opening, I'm telling you. I'm seeing these colors everywhere now. It makes me wonder, are there specific phrases or things we can say to communicate better with each type?
Absolutely. Both Surrounded by Idiots and Insight's Discovery have a ton of practical advice on that. For example, with reds, being direct, concise, action-oriented is key.
So no sugarcoating things, just get straight to the point, focus on the outcome.
You got it. Clear language, emphasize results, don't get lost in the details.
Efficiency is key with reds. What about blues? What kind of communication style do they respond to best?
With blues, be prepared. Present your information logically and back it up with facts, data, all of that.
Okay, so be well-researched, present things clearly, show your evidence.
Exactly. Blues appreciate accuracy, thoroughness, a structured approach.
They want to see the thinking behind what you're saying. Know that you've done your homework. No winging it with blues. Okay, what about greens? How do we create a communication style that works for them?
With greens, creating that safe, harmonious environment is crucial. Be patient, listen well, and avoid being too pushy or confrontational.
So approach them with empathy, understanding. Make them feel heard and valued.
Exactly. They're all about connection, collaboration, peace. Make sure they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts without feeling pressured or rushed.
So build that trust, that rapport, before you get into the nitty-gritty details. What about yellows? What's the key with them?
Yellows, be enthusiastic, be energetic, and give them space to be creative, to share those ideas.
Brainstorming sessions, lots of collaborative energy. That sounds like the way to go.
Absolutely. They thrive on interaction, inspiration, a sense of fun. So be playful, engage with their ideas, celebrate them.
This is so helpful. I'm seeing how this can really make a difference. But what about when, even with all this, we run into someone who's just being difficult, disruptive? Does Erickson offer any advice for dealing with those tough personalities?
He does. The book gives strategies for handling those tricky situations. The key is to stay calm, be assertive, and stay focused on what you want to achieve.
So don't let them throw you off balance. Keep your cool and set those boundaries.
Exactly. And if their behavior is, really disruptive, you might need to address it directly.
But how do you do that without making things worse?
Erickson suggests addressing the behavior calmly and respectfully, focusing on the impact it's having rather than attacking the person.
So instead of saying you're being rude, you might say, when you interrupt me, it makes it hard for me to share my thoughts.
Exactly. Focus on the behavior and its impact, and it opens up a dialogue without putting them on the defensive.
That's a great tip. It's about addressing the problem without making it personal. But what if they're just not willing to talk constructively, even after we've tried all this?
Sometimes the best thing you can do is disengage. If they're not receptive to feedback, not willing to change, maybe step back, revisit it later when things have calmed down.
Knowing when to walk away is so important. It can prevent things from escalating and give everyone a chance to reset. But are there other ways to de-escalate things before it gets to that point?
Sometimes just acknowledging their perspective can help. Even a simple, I understand you're feeling frustrated, can go a long way.
That's a great point. Showing empathy, validating their feelings, even if you don't agree with their actions.
Exactly. And that's what makes these communication tools so powerful, right? They help us navigate those tricky situations with more grace, more understanding, and get better results.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for understanding people and communicating better. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, does Surrounded by Idiots offer any final thoughts, takeaways for the reader?
It does, and it's something that both Erickson and Karl Mortier really emphasize. The world is full of different people, and that's a good thing.
I love that. It's like a reminder to embrace diversity, to appreciate what each personality type brings to the table.
You got it. And they both encourage us to keep learning about ourselves and others. Personal growth is a journey, right? There's always more to discover.
That's beautifully said. Understanding each other, it's an ongoing process, and there's always room to grow.
And in the end, it's about using this knowledge to build stronger relationships, create more harmony, and, just be more successful in everything we do.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I've learned so much about myself, about others, about the power of communication. It really does feel like we have a roadmap now, like we can actually take this knowledge and do something with it.
Exactly. It's not just theory. It's about actually using these insights to become better communicators, build those really strong connections.
As we've been talking, I keep thinking back to Karl Mortier meeting Thomas Erickson at that book fair. It's such a cool moment. These two guys who are so passionate about, helping people unlock this whole human interaction puzzle.
I know, right? And it's so cool that Karl, coming from that insights discovery background, he just got it immediately. Yeah, this is valuable. This makes sense. It really shows you how much we all crave that understanding, of ourselves and other people.
It's like they're both looking at the same thing, just from slightly different perspectives.
Yeah.
And when you combine them, boom, even deeper understanding.
You got it. And that's what we've been trying to do here today, right? Bring those insights from Surrounded by Idiots together with what you already know about insights discovery. Create something unique just for you.
And it's been amazing, honestly. I feel like I have a whole new way of looking at things. But I'm curious, was there anything specific from Surrounded by Idiots that really stuck with Karl? Something that, really clicked with the insights discovery approach?
Oh, absolutely. It's that idea that these systems, they're great. They give us a framework, but we can't use them to, like, box people in.
So it's not like, oh, you're a red, so you'll always act like this.
Yeah.
It's more nuanced than that.
Right. Everyone is a unique blend of these colors, and how they act can totally depend on the situation, their mood, all sorts of things.
It's recognizing that every person is different and there's so much more going on under the surface.
And that's where both Surrounded by Idiots and Insights Discovery really encourage us to, like, go deeper, look past the labels and see the individual. What motivates them? What are they afraid of? What do they dream of?
Because at the end of the day, it's all about human connection, right? Building those bridges, finding that common ground, even when we see the world differently.
And that is, I think, the most powerful message here. It's something that's at the heart of both Thomas Erickson's work and Insights Discovery. It reminds us that even though the world can feel divided sometimes, connection is always possible.
That's beautiful. And such a great note to end on. So, to our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Dive into Surrounded by Idiots. See how it connects with your own experiences, your own insights from Insights Discovery.
Remember, understanding ourselves and each other. It's a journey. It's ongoing. And every step we take, it makes the world a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more connected, a little more human.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been such a rewarding deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. And keep those amazing conversations going.
You've been listening to the House of Coaching podcast, where real transformation happens one conversation at a time. If today's insights sparked your interest, hit that like button and subscribe. You would not want to miss what's coming up next as Marsha and John take you behind the scenes of more transformative sessions with our master coaches. Ready to write your own success story? Visit thehouseofcoaching.com. Connect with us on LinkedIn and join a community of forward-thinking professionals who are reshaping the future of business, one breakthrough at a time. The House of Coaching, where your next level is just one conversation away. Till next time.
From dawn to dusk, ideas fly. John and Marsha reaching high. Every goal you'll amplify. Watch your spirits never die. Turn the whispers into roars. Walk through new and open doors. Unleash the hero to the core. Victory's what you're fighting for. Bring out the best in you. Feel the sky turn blue. Every challenge push on through. Bring out the best, it's true. Dusk, ideas fly. John and Marsha reaching high. Every challenge push on through. Bring out the best, it's true. From dawn to dusk, ideas fly. John and Marsha reaching high. Every challenge push on through. Bring out the best, it's true. From dawn to dusk, ideas fly. John and Marsha reaching high. Every challenge push on through. Bring out the best, it's true. From dawn to dusk, ideas true. Bring out the best, it's true. It's true.